Well, see, 90% of those other guys are going to drop out and get discouraged. And if you just keep from getting discouraged and keep on at it, you are going to automatically like get somewhere in your career. And I have always taken that to heart. And even when I feel like maybe down on myself or my ability, or go to IllexCon and see all the millions of artists that are so great and awesome that are, my peers and mentors. I think about that and it keeps me going. And low 20 years later, hey, I got somewhere.
Yeah. I always felt like that was one of the best things I always heard, was just the idea of perseverance. And that, I think also I've heard Boris Vallejo say something like that, is like something to the effect of like, I wasn't always the best artist in the room, but I was the artist that always showed up, that always did the work and just kept showing up. And now he's Boris Vallejo. So,
Absolutely. Keep showing up. That is always great advice.
Yep.
It is, definitely is. I think persistence is always a great topic to talk about for artists, and grit, because you don't have to be the best person as long as you just keep going. And you have to believe that eventually you'll be good enough.
Exactly. We are all, to some extent or another, learning on the job. That is, I guess every field is like that, but it's really, really evident in the arts, because you can see our progress. You can track it visually from our earliest days to, wherever we end up. And, there's really nowhere for us to hide, I suppose. But, it's great to take comfort in that, from seeing our progress from our early works to year by year.
Yeah, one of the best advice I got was that there's never a wasted drawing. Like, bad drawing is always better than no drawing. Even if you produce something completely horrible, it's always better than not drawing at all. Like, every failed drawing is pushing you a little bit further to make something good. So
that is great advice.
Art school.
And I also find, like, a lot of times working through the ideas, like, even if the drawing itself doesn't turn into something, it leads you to something else. Like, your brain is always like churning and recycling these creative ideas and building on them. And sometimes the way to get to the best piece is to go through some bad pieces, and then it turns into something else.
Yeah, totally. I fought for years doing mock-ups because I always thought that's just such a waste of time. I'll just draw the thing. Why do I need mock-ups? But like, I totally hear what you're saying now about how like there is no wasted drawing. Like, my finished drawings are now so much better, and I feel like I'm getting so much closer to the vision I have in my head because I took the time to make those bad drawings first and explore and really like feel out the concept from like different angles. So I can agree, it's totally true. Like, there's no wasted drawing. It's all building. Even if the drawing is a failure, you learn something that you can take on to the next pieces that you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think one of the pieces of advice that it wasn't said to me directly, but I've heard it repeated, and it was from Donato Giancola, and it was, if you don't believe in yourself enough to invest in yourself, then who else will? And that's something that just kind of like struck a note in my head of like, really, like, we have these ideas and these goals of who we want to become, what we want to do. And, it's easy to be like, well, if I had this resource, or if I had access to this thing, that this would help, or this would make me better, or, I'd be able to, accomplish more with these opportunities. But I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to like, what are you willing to do? Like, how much are you willing to invest of yourself into this dream and this idea? And I think that that's kind of been something that's kind of been like a nice guiding light on the horizon for me of like, like, I'm always going to push myself 110, 120%. And if I find opportunities and resources along the way, great. But like, I'm going to put everything I have into accomplishing my goals. And I think when you do that, you get a lot farther than just hoping that other people will be able to help lift you up and push you along the way.
It's like dress for the job you want, not the job you have sort of mentality.
Yeah.
You know, like if you act or if you like believe and behave like you are an artist and you're not just, if that's what you want and you're not just a hobbyist or you're not just someone who draws, then eventually the world will start to see you that way, and that extrapolates into like recognition, money, all those things.
Yeah, and I think also is like it was also kind of in a way freeing to just be like, this is what I want, and I'm just going to like, you know, as hard as I can run towards that goal. And in my head, I always had the feeling of like there wasn't really another alternative, anyways. Like like no matter what else I try to do, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be a writer. Like it's one way or another, it'll keep working its way back out. So it was like it was freeing in a way to be like, I don't need to wait for resources and opportunities and all of these other things to just do what it is that I actually want to be doing and working towards those goals.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also similar to saying that if you don't take yourself seriously, nobody else will. If you don't value your time, nobody else will. And it took me a good bit of time for this to sink in, but it's so true, because the contracts you encounter, the offers you encounter, those are people who might be nice, but they have their own goals in mind and not your well-being or your goals. So you have to say something, and you have to stand up for yourself in these moments, because nobody else will. And I think this is super important, but it's still like my brain doesn't really want to go there yet, but we're working on it. It's like you can get the best advice, but if you don't use it, or if you can't use it, it's not useful at all. But
exactly.
Sometimes it needs a while for something to click. Like you hear something and you think, this doesn't apply to me, and 5 years later you're like, I finally understand what it meant, and it's valuable at all. You thought it was trash, and then you brush off the dust, and you're just in another place in your life, and you're like, this is actually really good advice.
I wish I'd been doing this 10 years ago.
Sometimes you have to hear it a different way or hear it from a different person before like it really sinks in. I think.
Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. I had, like early on in my drawing career, like I had this horrible problem with obscuring my focal point. I wanted like every surface to be like uniformly decorative or something. And like the first person who told me that, that was Daryl K. Sweet again. He's like, don't obscure your focal point. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I took my portfolio over to Don Mates, who said exactly the same things, this much different. And I went, oh, I got it. And so I feel like everybody has like a certain way in which information penetrates their brains. And not every explanation is going to sound the same to the same person. It's like you have to get that information in exactly the right format for it to click in. So
that also reminds me of I was talking to Jeff Miracula's wife, Sylvia, and I was telling her about how I had been wanting to possibly do YouTube channels or to have some students and teach some people, but I felt kind of intimidated in that, like, everything's been taught before. Like, you have access, like, the internet is full of information. Like, there's access to any sort of information you want. So I'm like, what would I have to contribute that would be unique? And she's like, it's not about, creating something that's never been done before. When you're teaching other people, the idea is that there are people that will only learn it from you. That the way that you describe it will resonate with them differently than if someone else explained it to them. And so, I think that really helped me in the idea of like sharing knowledge and sharing ideas with people. It's not about always just having the most novel approach. sometimes it's just about finding those that you connect with and that think in a similar way or will understand it in a way that you present it that has value.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's true that there is, you know, the aphorism, there's nothing new under the sun, but, you know, what we, each individual human, do with what is under the sun, that's what makes it unique and special. Yeah.
I mean, everybody, us, is new, right?
Exactly.
And unique,
Exactly.
so...
So my piece of advice comes from an unlikely source. It's not a famous artist. My pearl of wisdom came from, of all places, my wedding caterer.
Wow.
So
I'm curious.
when my husband and I were getting married, like, I wanted to do this big medieval themed wedding. And when I chose my caterer, you know, they supplied the chairs and the tables, and they had these really adorable wooden chairs. And I was like, these totally fit my theme. I really want them. I was like all about these chairs for some reason. And then once we had hired the caterer and signed the contract, they had switched out their chairs for something else. And I was like really bummed because I was like, man, those chairs were just like so perfect. And like those chairs were really gonna like make the wedding what it was gonna be. And he said to me, he goes, I was like, yeah, I was one of those brides. So my caterer, he says to me, Heather, they won't know what you didn't do. And that really stuck with me because with my art, sometimes I find myself really wanting to achieve this vision in my head, but maybe my skill doesn't quite meet up to this vision in my head, or I haven't quite been able to master whatever kind of thing I'm trying to do with the art at that time. And I can feel frustrated because what's coming out on the page does not match the vision in my head. And then I just say that to myself, Heather, they won't know what you didn't do. They'll just see what's on the page. And as long as like you're happy with what's on the page and everybody else likes it, then it's art and it's good. So that helps me get through those difficult pieces. So
that is brilliant. And you know, that reminds me of another pearl of wisdom that I got along the way, which is shut up. Like,
rude.
if you don't start criticizing your art, odds are other people will only see the good, you know. But if you start with the negativity, if you start, well, this isn't what I wanted, but blah, 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 then it completely changes the tone of the whole interaction with, you know, social media, everything. Art directors, they hate it when you tell them what's wrong with stuff. You know, don't do that. Just shut up. Be happy in your silence.
I wonder if that's a habit that crops up from like art school, because the teachers, like, they kind of want you to give them that feedback so that they know that you can see like where the areas of growth that you need to go are. But that does not translate well into the professional world. Like, I've gone to conventions and I've talked to artists that do just that. I'm like, oh, this piece is beautiful. And they start listing like all the things that are wrong with it. And it really does kind of impact your relationship with the work. But I feel like I am better at just kind of shoving that away because I'm an artist, so I understand. But like people who aren't artists, that is gonna like kind of, you know, affect them differently. So we all need to be aware of that.
Well, you've insulted their taste.
Yeah.
Oh, this is beautiful. No, it isn't.
This one sucks. It's the worst one.
I think too, it also comes from like having a lot of artist peers, and it's like when we share our work with each other, we want feedback and criticism, and like I think that we get very comfortable talking about our work in terms of like, well, I was trying to do this, but this is happening, and I'm not sure what to do about this. And I think that when we talk about our art, most of the time when we're creating it is with other artists and with peers or people close to us in our lives that we're trying to get feedback from on how to work on it. So we spend most of the time when we're working on our art and talking about our art in some way critical of it as we're trying to like work through it and turn it into something that is the best that we can turn it into. But then it's like knowing when that conversation has ended and now it's just like, here's what I've created. Like,
Have any of you guys ever had somebody critique your art at a convention? Like, I'm just curious.
I don't think so. If so, I've blocked it out of my memory.
I had the most hilarious interaction. I mean, you couldn't even take offense at it because it was just so egregious, of someone coming up to me and looking at my work and kind of chuckling and said, is this acrylic? I could do better than that in acrylic. I could do better than anyone in this art show. And I would like to point out that at that art show, the artist guest of honor was Todd Lockwood. And my reaction was kind of like, great, do it. Do it. Yeah.
Live.
You didn't even know you were standing in front of greatness at that moment.
I do recall one interaction that I thought was just so strange. And there was this guy, and it was like, he was there looking at all the art, and then he started telling me about like how, you know, all the art has been done before and how repetitive everything is. And like, then he started telling me that he has his own art show, but not here at the convention. It's a real gallery or whatever. And he's like, but what you don't understand is like your art, like everyone needs light to see it, right? It's like all the other art that you need light to see, but my art glows in the dark. And I was like, yes, you're right. You need light to see my art. I think you've just invalidated my entire life's work. That's okay. All right, cool.
Wow.
I like moments like that. You're not even sure what to say. You're just like, cool. Good for you. I hope that works out nice.
Yeah.
Picturing one of those infomercials where the guy is like, you have all this great art, but you just can't see it because there's no light. Well, you have to solve that problem.
Yeah. It was like he was like gearing up for it. It was like he was like holding that punchline back of my art glows in the dark, and I was just like, wow, all right.
Wow.
Probably his artist statement. So, things glowing in the dark. Do we have some glow-in-the-dark tools around here?
I cannot say any of my tools glow in the dark.
Well, but do you have something that shines in your heart as brightly as if it was glowing in the dark? You know, it's a tool that you just stroke lovingly before going to
collect
bed.
tools that are like gold and shiny, as I may have mentioned, my dragon-like tendencies towards shiny things, or like even like my scissors and stuff. At this point, my husband just thinks it's a joke. Like every tool I try to buy, like I try to find like some shiny gold version of it.
Oh,
This
nice.
is awesome.
But I actually do have one tool I really love. It is this. And I got it when I was a young teenager, when I was first starting out painting. And I didn't know what it was, but it has like a really nice rubber tip. And I always referred to it as my oil painting eraser. And I just loved it so much. Like you have all these brushes and you're smudging stuff around and putting paint on and moving paint around. I just loved that there was a tool that I could just pull the paint right back off. And this is probably my favorite tool when I'm painting. Hence, it's been around since I first started.
That is awesome. It's like a magic wand.
Kind of, yeah.
My favorite tool is very shiny, and once again, it came from an unlikely place.
Ooh.
These are cuticle scissors. And I use them on my art all the time. So I do a lot of like drawings on moleskin, and moleskin has like little fibers on it. And if you erase too much, the little fibers can poke out. And my drawings tend to be really small. So even like the slightest shadow that's cast from these little fibers that may be poking out really bother me. I'm that kind of bride. I'm that kind of artist. So I have these cuticle scissors, and they're really great for just getting right up against the paper and just snipping those little fibers that pop up. And they have like a really good spring action. And I've got like several of these just lying around my studio, and I love them because before I would try to like kind of glue it down with some sort of like waxy kind of thing, or I would try to erase more, which would just make the problem worse. This solves the problem. Every artist needs cuticle scissors for their drawings.
That's brilliant.
I never would have thought of that. That's fantastic.
Totally stumbled upon it by accident in a moment of desperation. But
my special treasured tool is, it's kind of foolish, I suppose, but I used to think that I was too uncoordinated to use a liner brush. Just a regular old liner brush. It's a brush that has a really long bristle section attached to the ferrule in which you can just hold a lot more paint. And if you are coordinated enough, you can make thin lines. You can write. You can do all kinds of things without. They were made for ships rigging originally, because when people painted a lot of tall ships with all the riggings, so sometimes you'll see them called a rigger, but we typically just call them a liner. And recently, I guess within the past couple of years, I picked one up because it was in a pack of brushes that I was buying, and I realized that it was the best thing ever. So this is my favorite toy right here.
I'm actually scared to use those. I have yet to use a rigger because
I was scared too. Oh.
They are my favorite brushes. In fact, like I have a problem of like I love riggers so much that I just buy when I buy brushes. It's like I'll buy a normal brush and then I'll buy 4 riggers and then I'll buy a normal brush and then I get home and I'm painting and I'm like, God, I need a brush that is not long and skinny. Why are these all long and skinny?
I need a flat wide, for goodness.
Yeah, like I never buy those. I always buy the riggers.
I guess I wanted to share my shiniest tool with you that I love. Okay, so I keep it in this silk bag, which is pretty shiny. That's the shiny part. It is my calligraphy chalk. And let's see if I can put it up to where people can see it. It is a piece of just kind of this purple jadeite stone, and I have hand carved my initials into it. And I use cinnabar in the traditional way. Here's the pot of cinnabar. So when I'm doing calligraphy, I stamp the chalk into the red stuff and then just stick it on my work.
Super cool.
There you go. So I love using these traditional materials. I don't have a traditional style with ink painting. Use it how I learned to use it 30 years ago, which means I have 30 years of bad habits. But that's why I studiously avoid calling it sumi-e, or I studiously avoid calling it Chinese brush painting or any other kind of brush painting. It's just me doing ink painting, which is why I have used just my regular initials for this chalk, as opposed to like trying to make something in small seal script or something calligraphy than this, because I feel like it's honestly me. I took way too many hours to carve this. I have
that it's carved. That is amazing.
I seriously have a problem anytime I see like a blank piece of just like soapstone. I want to carve something into it, and it's really hard. It's supposed to be soft, but it's not soft enough. You get calluses and blisters on your hands from doing it. Yeah. But I've done 7 of them, so apparently that's how dumb I am.
Perseverant.
That's right, perseverant.
Each one a teaching moment.
That is so true.
Okay, so according to the timetable, it's time for auction artwork now. So I have to admit to something, because I messed up in the beginning because YouTube changed its layout and usually I just have to click on start stream in OBS, and now I have to click start stream in YouTube as well, and I forgot the latter one. So we missed our round of introductions, but we got all the questions, and I didn't want to interrupt you guys. But because you all have artwork for the auction, I'd like you to add a little introduction before the artwork again. So if anybody has missed it and has been wondering who these people are for all this time, so you get that in again. So if you would do that for me to make up for my inability to use YouTube properly.
Someone go first. I did it badly last time.
It was practice, nobody saw it.
That's right. That's
True,
nobody
true.
saw it. I could have just shut up and not said anything, and I would have looked all professional. See, the pearls of wisdom coming in handy already.
It would be so nice if we always knew when we were messing up while we were doing it.
Sometimes I do, and that's just awful. I'm like, why am I doing this? I should stop.
Okay, sometimes sweet ignorance is better.
Like there's times I'm like, I can erase this and it won't make a hole in the paper. I don't know. No, I can't.
So yeah, Melissa, you get a new start.
A new start.
Yes,
Oh,
show us the
right.
art. Show us the art, and tell us about your precious self.
Well, I am Melissa Gay. I am an illustrator of tabletop role-playing games and fantasy and sci-fi book covers and fun stuff like that. I've also illustrated a couple of tarot decks and, in fact, a botany lab manual, all kinds of just weird stuff. And I am found on the web at melissagay.com, so that's easy enough. And I have just self-published funded through Kickstarter, a book called Finding My Familiar of toned paper sketches, and yay! And here is my little drawing. I'm trying really hard to keep the glare off it because it is under glass. But yeah, I call it Baby's First Hoard.
Aww. So cute.
Thank you. And it comes in the frame, so yay. This is just sort of an image that popped into my head when I was trying to think of something to do for the loot auction. And once I came up with the title, everything just fell into place. I was like, oh, well, obviously it's going to look like this. And once I decided that the gemstone that he was curled up on was going to be a pearl, it sort of helped dictate my choice of media. It's watercolor pencil underneath acrylic. And the watercolor pencil, the different, I used like a pink and a green to make that iridescent pearliness. And then when you put, not just water will make the watercolor pencil bleed, but any water-based media. So you can paint acrylic over it and sort of tease out the pencil texture and make it more of a fluid watercolor texture. And of course the acrylic helps protect the watercolor. And I mentioned this on my Patreon, which is Melissa Gay at Patreon, is that I have put several coats of ultraviolet protective medium and varnish over it, so that this piece is about as light stable as current modern science can let it be. So enjoy your hoard for generations to come.
Aww. So lovely. So such a sweet and clever idea, and I love the composition. It's so simple and so perfect.
Oh, thank you. I wanted him to look like a little jewel too.
Yeah, yes. The whole thing is, I mean, it's ready to hang, so it's a perfect way to start a hoard for a new collector, I think, in my opinion. So, next one. Show your art.
Okay, I could go next.
Yeah, do it, dragon.
I am Jeszika Le Vye, and this is my piece that I'm putting in the auction. And this is part of a series that I've been doing called Flora and Feather that has to do with birds and flowers. And it started as just like a love of like just the beautiful treasures that are around us in the world and just loving to like try and capture what is beautiful about the world around us. But I also felt inspired to, in every single one of the paintings, I have hidden little tiny treasures.
Aww, I didn't notice that when I picked this for the banner.
Every single one of these has little imaginary creatures hidden in the paintings, little dragons mixed in with the birds and flowers.
You are a genius. That is amazing.
Yes.
So, and it's just like, sometimes I think we sometimes forget that the world is just filled with wonderful things around us, that the world is beautiful, it's filled with treasures, and even the things from our imagination are based on, the beautiful things in the world around us and trying to build upon them and create something new and beautiful. And so that's what I've been doing. Like for introduction purposes, I'm Jeszika Le Vye. I do imaginative realism painting. I always loved the idea of like imaginative realism because I've always loved realism. I love the idea of like taking the world around us and turning it into something just a little bit more. Like, so you see these like ideas, these beautiful creatures or stories, and they feel like they're part of the world around you, but they're just like these little extra pushes of the world around us. And I'm also working on a series of Egyptian mythology and working towards painting all the different gods and goddesses and writing short stories to go with each one of them. And so I'm working on doing a full book of those. And you can find all of my different series on my website, which is just jeszika.com, Jeszika with a Z. And also I have a Patreon for my Egyptian mythology series. So you can like follow along and see like each new painting as it comes out for the book. Speaking of which, I have just started adding gold foil to my print tiers, and I just got my proof this morning for my first Patreon gold foil print. So This is Hathor. She was a goddess of music, dance, female sexuality, life. She was just a very like dynamic, passionate figure. And I'm just so excited to add the gold foil. So all of my Patreons that are getting mini prints will be getting gold foil prints from now on. So it's exciting. All right, I'm done.
Those are beautiful. I love gold.
I know. I love gold so much.
My art has a little gold on it too. Good segue. Okay, so my name is Heather Hitchman. I am a fantasy artist and world builder, and I'm creating the paranormal fairy tale world of Terra Top. It combines the fun of fantasy creatures of paranormal activity and the supernatural. And I draw all kinds of fantasy creatures, known for doing unicorns, dragons, fawns, and all kinds of fantasy critters like that. This year, though, I'm focusing completely on unicorn art, like this one, because I am making a book of all of my unicorn art that I've been making. Is it shiny?
A little bit. I can see it as it turns.
Let me take it out of the thing. All right.
Yes, much better. Yeah.
So I'm making a book of all of my unicorn art and short stories based on my world of Terra Top that I've been working on since 2015. So it's going to be a big chunky book with lots of art like this. And I decided to put a couple pieces in the auction. So these are little like nature paintings that I made. They are watercolor, gouache, and colored pencil. And I really like the idea of loot being out in nature, and they're just like little treasures for every clever girl to collect. So this one is rose leaves, and they've got little like orbs of gold cremor pigment floating around them, because in Terra Top, there's like little orbs of benign magic that just kind of float, which is reminiscent to, if you ever watched like Ghost Adventures or shows like that, they're always trying to capture like orbs on camera. And this is my interpretation of that. They just float all over the place. And this one is the pepper vine. It doesn't have the berries, but I just found that the leaves were really interesting. So this is a similar kind of idea. These are going to be little spot illustrations to go kind of like in between the art. And this is an example of, again, one of the unicorns that will be in there. This was actually a sketch practice. This is one of my mock-ups for a bigger piece that I did that was a collab with another artist. So my unicorn was playing with her unicorn.
Oh.
And I guess the idea is that friendship is one of the most precious treasures. So
Friendship is magic.
this is all about friendship for me. And if anybody would like to follow along with the process of this book, I'm looking to kickstart it next summer around Junicorn. So you can follow me on my social media at Heather Hitchman. That's HeatherHitchman. And if you really want to see all of the behind the scenes, or you want to help me create this book, check out my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Tarot Talk. That's where I share all of my Tarot Talk stuff first. Really active there. I really am interactive. So if you're feeling lonely and you want someone to talk to, give me a dollar. I'll talk to you.
She will. Heather is a big old extrovert. Yay.
Somebody has to be.
Speaking of unicorns, the rare artist extrovert.
Yes, right? Exactly.
I miss everyone's face so much, like I can't even tell you. Like, this has been hard.
Oh.
Video really helped, so I was really happy that you invited me to be in this video, because I just miss everyone so much. Like, as an extrovert, that's how I get some of my energy, is like from being around other people and interacting with people and talking. And like when I'm making my art, that's kind of like the only time I like to be like quiet and in my head. So I've been getting a lot of quiet in my head time and not a whole lot of like, socializing. So I'm really happy that we're doing this today, and I hope we can do more of them, honestly.
Yeah.
Every month, and really we're just doing this so we get to talk with people during Corona. It's just for our mental health, really.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm an introvert and I miss you guys. Seriously. I threatened to be like with Heather, just like throw paper wads at her from behind my blanket fort. And even I am like, I gotta come out and talk to people.
Yeah, I know, like, even me, like, I'm a super introvert, but I just, like, most of my time, because I work home by myself at home, like, I'm by myself all the time, which is, like, great for being creative and being an introvert, but, like, I found that I just really looked forward to, like, every other month or so going out and just seeing, like, all of my artist friends and doing these shows and talking to all these new people about art, and, like, then I'd go home and recover for a week. But, like, I really love it. And I just, like, this year, I've just missed it so much. Like,
It's amazing, right? The difference that it makes, even just that, like, a few times a year that we do venture out, it makes a huge difference not to have that anymore. Crazy.
And I feel like because that is like where we kind of traditionally meet up, like maybe, and I've been trying to get better at this too, trying to like reach out to people online and be more communicative online, because before I would just think to myself, if there was something I wanted to say to somebody, I'm going to see them at a con in like a few weeks. Like, I'll just talk to them there, but I don't have that opportunity anymore. So I'm trying to get better at like communicating online and things like that. And I was feeling like really sad recently, like when Dragon Con came and went, because I was,
Yeah, me too. And I wasn't doing Dragon Con this year anyway. I was intentionally taking a break because I did like everything last year. I did Gen Con, and then I did the Light Gray Art Lab Iceland trip, and then I did Dragon Con. That was like all within the space of about a 4-week period, and it was crazy, and I was dead for like 3 months afterwards. But yeah, by the time it rolled around again, I was like, ready to tackle the crazy.
It was supposed to be my first year at Dragon Con. I was so excited, and I was just like, finally, like, I heard so many great things about it, and I was like, I cannot wait to go, and no, it didn't happen. So next year will be great.
Last year was my first year, and like it lives up to the hype. That's all I can. Like, I was having breakfast every morning with Annie Stagg, Justin Gerard, and Corey Gabi, just like going to the bars and like just like getting to talk to people and like selling art and getting to like meet like a whole new like demographic of fans because I don't like typically do shows in Georgia. So it was so magical and I miss it. Next year.
Next year.
And then everybody will be like really hungry for social interaction. So it'll be even better.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so.
I'm believing. I'm hoping.
There's going to be 150,000 people at Dragon Con next year.
It's a little intimidating. That's like I said, go home and recover for a week afterwards. That's all right. It'll be worth it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really talk about conventions. I'm sitting here overseas, like,
Oh.
you're all sad. I just don't have all this FOMO about everybody going, we're at this convention and this convention, meeting all these crazy, amazing people, and I'm sitting at my screen like, when will I ever meet these people? I mean, that's the true reason why I'm doing these live streams. I get to know who you are, you know, it's like, just these precious jewels, you know, once a month of in-person time with amazing artists, and I don't even have to leave my desk. Very convenient.
Are you saying that friendship is your loot?
Yes.
Awesome.
Connection. It's precious time spent with wonderful people. I mean, you guys are so lovely. Oh, this mood, you know, I've been working all day and I was just starting to get tired and like nervous. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do the stream. And you are just laughing the whole time. It's like my mood is just lifted, you know, it's like the sun is coming up, going down. Yes, it's wonderful. Are there no questions today? So, I don't know how about your plans. So, we could end this now. I could talk a little bit more about how wonderful you are and how grateful I am for doing this with me. Let's see how many viewers. I don't know. It says 4. It's new layout. I'm not 100% sure what it's showing me, but I'll get statistics later. Or we could talk about what we started to talk about before we started the stream, about how working on one idea can spawn new ideas, so that making things creates new loot for us to use. I mean, I'm free in doing anything. We have 10 more minutes allocated for this, so.
Yeah, I really loved what Melissa said, because like I have this thing where like I'm working on one series and I'm like, okay, I've got to like just focus on this and get this done. And whenever like I get in that mindset of like, okay, I'm focusing on this one thing, all of a sudden my brain just like makes a break for it in every possible direction, and there's just like ideas like pouring out of my brain, and I'm like, where were you guys a week ago? Like all these ideas, like I don't know what to do with them all, and I don't have time to do them all. Melissa had a very like interesting way of saying it. It's like, when you focus your creativity like down to one thing, it like vents the steam out in every direction, and that's exactly what it feels like. So I just thought that was fantastic.
Well, that happens to me too, and like I actually have. So for Christmas, my husband got me like this little sketchbook, and I draw small, but I don't draw this small. So I was like, yay, thanks. I found a use for it, because now this is like where I do like all of, whenever I have like those ideas, I just do like a little scribble or like silly
like paper,
like little doodle in my little baby sketchbook here to like kind of like work out my ideas, so then I can kind of like keep going with whatever I'm actually working on. And I'm thinking that because it's already full of unicorn art, I'm gonna like make this book completely all of my unicorn concepts for the book. And when I do the Kickstarter, there's going to be a very special tier that'll have this book with all of my scribbles and ideas. And you can have artistic gems like that, my Sharpie drawings.
Oh, wow.
The best art ever. This could be yours.
Dang.
No, but it's really a cool idea. It's such a one-of-a-kind treasure. It's like just filled with all these little creative thoughts, and daydreams and doodles. I love it.
I was so like, you know how sometimes when you post stuff on Instagram that you've like really spent a lot of time on, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be like the thing, and then it gets like, you know, minimum amount of likes, and then like you like a little like quick doodle, and you're like, this sucks, I really shouldn't post it, and then it goes nuts. That was this.
Okay.
Yeah, that was really.
I can understand that, because now hold it up again. There's a reason why people like works in progress better than finished artwork, you know, on Instagram and the like. I think stuff like that and rough sketches like that, there's an energy that comes through. And I feel like it's almost more of a direct window into the heart of the artist. And like something like that, look at that energy. It's amazing. I mean, it's captivating and infectious, and I think there's really something to that.
My heart must be really messy.
I like that.
Look at that. That's so nice. It's emotion. It's just so honest, and I love ink sketches to begin with. I mean, I like grew up on that kind of illustration. So anyway, reminds me of my youth. Good job.
Thank you. I'm sorry I spoke badly about you. You're fresh.
Reminds me of, yeah, Quentin Blake and John Wilson and all that. I mean, it's less dark than some of that, but it's got that same kind of energetic line style.
I like literally never use ink, and I actually drew those like, in the middle of our move. I was trying really hard to like do some sort of art every third day or so, and all there was around was a Sharpie, so I was like, fine, I'm gonna do some Sharpie stuff, but it ended up turning into something a little magical, I guess. So.
Yeah, it did.
And that's kind of why sketchbooks can be like these little treasure troves, because they're capturing the state of your mind at one moment and where you are, because they can come with you, and you can just be freer in there and try something out and just take little notes and do stupid and silly things that might be brilliant in the end. It's also, I think, what people really love, I really love looking at other people's sketchbooks, because you kind of catch a glimpse into what people are up to when nobody's looking. And
that's well put. Yes.
And for you yourself, you have all these ideas, just piling up for you to pick one once you're done with your current project. So when I have ideas coming up when I'm working on something else, I just note them all down, just grateful for all these free ideas my brain is producing right now. It's like there's something new coming up, and I'm like, you're great, I'm gonna write you down and work on you looking at schedule in half a year, but just keep going, brain, give me more. I'm a lazy person. If my brain does things on its own, it's perfect. It's just come to me, come all to me, ideas. So yeah,
it never fails that I will think of some awesome ideas when I'm driving or something, and that's kind of the worst. I actually learned like early on that I could like scribble something without looking and it be sort of legible. That was like a skill that I developed, and I would not like necessarily recommend that to other people, but I could scribble a word on like just whatever piece of paper I had on the seat next to me, and I could like, oh yeah, that idea. So
I've definitely freaked my husband out with the like driving and then like grabbing something and like trying to like hold it on the steering wheel.
Don't try it, kids, okay? This is no professional advice. Keep safe.
But it's like sometimes those ideas are like, they just hit you. Like you're like listening to the radio or having a conversation, and all of a sudden your brain just like starts like fireworks going off, and you're like, I have to like right now. This is have to save it.
All of my best ideas either while I'm playing video games or right when I'm like falling asleep. So then I have to like get out of bed and like.
I do that. I have that next to the bed scribble journal, and I don't even turn on the light. I've got a pencil, I've got this notebook, and I just scribble it without looking. It's my my blind scribble skills coming in handy.
Teach me your ways.
Okay.
Yeah, I find oh, sorry.
No, just continue talking. I was
find video games really inspirational to me, particularly like with stories, and it's always like games that have bad stories, because I'll be like, I could make this better if I like this character should have done this instead, and then like I bring it into my own little stories. Right now I'm playing the Tomb Raider series, and there's so many plot holes. Things that don't make sense. Like, I don't do spoilers, but I'm like, why? How? So that's like how I get a lot of my inspiration for, because a lot of my illustrations are very story based. They all have a little story that go with them. So that is very inspirational to me as well.
Yeah, I'm extremely story based, and I think that my love of art came out of my love of writing and reading. I was such a little bookworm as a kid. I just like I consumed like sci-fi novels, like oh man, that was like my life. And I have loved books and collecting books, and I mean now it's a problem. I have thousands of books. There's not a room in my house that is not just filled with bookshelves lining all the walls. I have a storage unit full of books, like stacked to the ceiling of books. Like it's when I ask my friends to help me move, it's like it's a real favor. It's like
books are, I know books are like one of the heaviest annoying things to move.
Yeah, it's terrible. But like I remember just like all of these stories, and then like as a kid, I just would always try to imagine like a way to like visually represent the story. And I've always been really interested in like, besides just making the picture look beautiful, like how do you convey like the emotions? Like if you listen to a song or you read a story, like you get a feeling, like it like stirs things inside you and moves you. And I've always been really interested in how to do that visually. And it's hard because with a painting, it's like it's just this single static moment. It doesn't move. There's no progression through a sequence of images, and it's like it's just one image. So I feel like it's really hard in the same way that to capture in the way that music or story or movie can bring out emotions in you. I feel like it's really hard with a painting, but I've just always loved that challenge and really like strove for ways to like unlock a little bit more feeling out of you when you look at a painting. And so I surround myself with books because I feel like you'll just like come in my house one day and like see me and I'm like sitting there just staring at my bookshelf. And like I'm just looking at like the spines and remembering the like words that are inside of that spine or that one and thinking about the ways that they did things and like trying to picture things in my head. Like literally I spend like 20 minutes just staring at my bookshelf, like imagining the stories that are in the books.
That's so awesome.
You're like Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
I think if there was a Disney character, that might be the one. Oh man, it's a problem.
If by problem you mean awesome.
Yes, I definitely have a awesome hoard of books. I will say that. I love it. And I'm such a sucker for like beautiful books too. It's like I could have 3 copies of the same book, and then like some publisher will come out with a new copy that has like a gorgeous cover, like beautiful graphic design, and I'm like, I gotta buy another copy of this book now.
I do that. At one point, I think I had 4 copies of Good Omens in my house.
I have many copies of Dune. I think that's the one. I most recently bought another copy of Dune, and they're just beautiful books. Like it's just been printed in so many beautiful ways. And I love that. Was actually one of my favorite sci-fi stories as a little girl. I always loved that series. So. It's one of the things I'm not supposed to be working on right now because I got serious projects I need to be working on, but secretly in the background, I've been doing Dune fan art that I'm really excited about.
That's so cool.
Isn't there a movie coming out or a...
Yes.
Yeah, in November. And I'm torn because because I love Dune, and I've heard that it looks like it's going to be really good. Like the people involved in it do a really good job, and I'm really excited to see it. But Justin Gerard said something. I was at a workshop earlier this year that he was at, and it really stuck with me. And he was talking about some of his Hobbit paintings and how he had made the conscious decision to paint them before he watched any of the movies or anything like that, because he had like such a clear vision of the world in his head, and he wanted to capture that before it got diluted with somebody else's vision that would happen from watching the movie. And I kind of feel the same way because I've had a love for the Dune world and story for so long, and it's one of those, like, if I were to ever do fan art, that's like the top of the list right there. So then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, that's one of the reasons I started painting them now, was like I would actually like to see what my brain creates out of this world before I watch the movie. But I really want to watch the movie, so it's like I gotta like get my shit in here.
Hurry on!
Yeah, I have till November, I think.
That's a really good point about how other people's vision changes what's in your head.
Yeah.
You know, we're always, our brains are like sponges, constantly absorbing input from the outside. And, you know, after a while, it's like, I'm not clear, gosh, did I think of this, or is that from, you know, this other movie or something? So, yeah, I think you're very smart to try to do that. And I think that's an important project in and of itself.
Oh.
There's no one else who can make Jeszika Le Vye Dune fan art.
Yeah, and there's a lot of love behind it, because I just think that there's so many things in that story that are just really compelling and rich. And just,
are you going to be sharing it online?
I haven't yet, because they're still all like ugly little babies. They haven't turned into anything pretty yet. But
well, ugly little babies are gorgeous, so I want to share them anyway. I think if I was going to do fan art, it would be BioShock.
Oh, awesome!
That's so cool.
I've like worked a couple like little BioShock elements into some of my like mermaid stuff, but I don't think I could really dive into it because so much of that world is like based on the architecture, and I suck at architecture. So I'm just like drawing little like helmets all the time.
That's cool.
I love it. I love BioShock so much. I've played that game over and over and over, and it was like so influential for me to like finding out like what kind of storyteller I want to be and like what kind of themes I want to touch on. So I love that. Like if I was going to do fan art, that would be the thing. It would be like a pretty version of BioShock.
I want to see that.
Yeah. BioShock drawn by Heather. Yeah, that would be really good.
It actually kind of like inspired this book that I want to write like someday that has like it has nothing to do with anything I'm currently doing. It's the idea, it was called Domed, and it's about it's kind of funny that I had the idea like soon before COVID happened. There's this like disease that like basically like strips people's faces bare so that they're just like skeletons, but they're still alive. So they wear these domes over their heads to like have like a human kind of visual on their face, and depending on like your level of wealth, that kind of like defines what kind of dome you can afford. And there's like this really interesting like class structure that develops based on like what kind of dome you have, and like it could be as simple as like a paper bag with a smiley face on it. You have like these holographic ones that kind of like display like what the face used to look like. And then I saw an ad a few days ago for a mask that had like a holographic like mouth on it that would like mimic the person's like mouth movements. And I was like, but that's like an offshoot kind of like, I have like my little sci-fi tendencies, I guess, outside of my fantasy stuff. But that would be like one day after I'm bathing in my Terra Top riches and I can dive into something like that.
Yeah.
I could totally sympathize with the fantasy versus sci-fi thing, where it's like, I feel like as a painter, I am very firmly rooted in like fantasy. It's very organic and part of the natural world and human. But when it comes to things that I like to consume, like media that I enjoy, I'm almost like 100% in the sci-fi camp. Like I just like, I'm a huge Trekkie. Like I said, I love Dune. Like the Expanse books, I tore through those. I love those. Like I am just like everything that I love to read or watch is like 100% sci-fi, and that's something that actually has kind of like bothered me. Like that my paintings are fantasy, and it's like I paint what comes to my head, so it's like I can't really like force it. But in my head, I've always wondered like why is it that when I go down to paint, it's always like very organic and fantastical. But what I actually, the ideas that I love and the media that I consume is very sci-fi. And I think part of it might actually simply be an intimidation of painting non-organic materials and forms. Like I find architecture very intimidating. Like the idea of like metal ships or helmets or technological things like, and it might also just be that visually I find the natural world very beautiful, less so than just like man-made materials, but I love the ideas in sci-fi. Maybe it's a union of the two of what's visually interesting versus intellectually interesting to me. I don't know.
I think it's okay if the art that you like to make isn't the same as the art that you like to consume. This was something I had to accept as well.
Yeah.
Because I like BioShock. I like Last of Us. Right now I'm listening to the audiobooks of Mass Effect. And like that has nothing to do with like ghosty things or unicorns or any of that, but it all still like informs me in some way, I guess. And I still like I love Lord of the Rings and all of those things as well. So it all kind of mishmashes together, I guess.
Yeah.
Make the art that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Well, and that is sort of I had to come to grips with that make art that makes you happy thing, because I think we are very much called upon as artists, as independent creators, as people who work with art directors to sort of establish a brand identity. And sometimes we want to do different things. I don't know about you guys, but I have like this rebellious streak wherein if I am doing too much imaginative realism, I want nothing more than just to smash it all, burn it to the ground, and build up this edifice of abstract expressionism. And so I end up doing this sort of like two souls art where I do these imaginative realist illustrations, and then I do these sci-fi, these sort of space opera, space scenes. They're too fantastical to be true sci-fi, but it's just like it's raw. It's on the canvas. It's like layered. There are depths that you can see through, and that I could not give up one for the other for anything any more than I could choose between like my spouse and my child, you know. It's just but there's a lot of pressure to do that, and you know, you just gotta do what you want to do.
I'm not gonna lie, I have like a secret enjoyment of doing abstract paintings that I never show to anybody, but like I do. I have like these big textural like abstract paintings. I even have a fake artist name for my abstract paintings. If I ever decide to get brave enough, I'll like put them out there under a different name, like some abstract artist. Like,
you have to tell me if you do, because I want to look at them.
Yeah.
all right. I'll get it a little PM. This is my secret identity.
That's really cool. I don't have secret art.
Oh, that's okay. You have secret Sharpie sketches.
I do.
Well, you weren't going to show those, and now I'm obsessed with them.
I'll make more just for you.
Aw. Okay. Yes, that's our last word for today. Creation, the most precious jewel of them all. Because it's time to end this. The solemn moment has come. I thank you all very, very much for bringing so much joy to my evening. And
thank you for hosting this. It was lovely.
Oh yeah, we should do it again, like next month. So if any of you want to do this again, So just keep an eye on our group, and I'll let you know. I think next theme is just going to be something spooky, and the one after our playlist theme. So something about music and inspiration, I suppose.
I'm so excited for that project.
I've had mine like half started for like a few months now for the playlist. I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be a cool piece.
Ooh.
I started.
I can't see what people do.
Aw, it's going to be awesome. Everybody's going to be doing so awesome. Anyways, I will end the stream now. Thank you everybody for watching us, just chatting away. It was a pleasure. Yes, and I know where the button is now. I can stop the stream even if I couldn't start it.
Don't forget to check out our Changeling auction in a few days.
Yes, on Monday. There's going to be great art. Great art. For your hearts.